Okay, it's 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this Rutherford Board of Education regular meeting to order. I'm going to ask everyone to please stand if you can. Face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Present.
Mr. Bogosian,
Present.
Mr. Conti,
Present.
Mr. Healy,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Present.
Mr. Mazzone,
Here.
Dr. Racine,
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Present.
Dr. Awadi.
Here.
You have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. All right, board members, in your packets, there are two sets of minutes to approve. One are regular meeting minutes of March 21st, 2022, as well as executive session on the same date. Any questions or comments for those meeting minutes? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. And I will turn it over now to Mr. Raffanello for the report of the student representative.
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. As quarter 3 comes to an end and we begin the last quarter of the year, everyone is looking forward to what the last 2.5 months of school brings. Back on February 17th, 9 members of FBLA advanced to the state competition, and currently Miss Bod and Miss Leonard are waiting for the results. At the beginning of last month, members of Future Teachers of America and some public speaking students went on the Read Across Rutherford trip, where we went to Washington School, Lincoln School, and the Kindergarten Center to read to the elementary school students. The kids had and do some activities. The kids had fun and enjoyed the stories. Mr. Mulcahy, Dr. Valechko, and Mrs. Coy had an exciting day planned for the kids so they can celebrate Dr. Seuss. Members of Future Teachers of America do various activities at the Kindergarten Center with students in Miss Goodman's class. They have a goal set to start doing activities with Bulldog Academy, which will expand the club's opportunities to work with special education students. The club currently has 35 members, which is the largest they've ever had. The RTV classes have been participating in a TV production Wordle tournament. The TV production 1 classes took over the live broadcast for the RTV morning show for the month of March. The RTV Club filmed the March 4th performance of the Matilda play, which was shared with the cast and crew. They prepared a short film to be showcased at Popsard, which is on Wednesday. The Learning Commons just participated in the Battle of the Books for March Madness, where students vote for their favorite titles and help select a winner. So far, spring athletes have had a successful season, whether they played lacrosse, baseball, softball, or do track. On the week of March 14th, juniors took the NJGPA test, which is a new graduation requirement for state testing. They did 2 days of math and English for the other 2. On March 25th, members of Heroes and Cool Kids had a training session to prepare for our last visit to Pierpont School for the year to discuss building strength with the 6th graders, which is on April 13th. Members of the GSA brought back the Rainbow Bagel sales, which are always a big hit. It has energized the student body, and students line up eagerly awaiting for the bagels to arrive. The first week, they had us pre-order our bagels, but the next week we were able to just buy them in person. GSA members are also working with each other to use proper pronouns when addressing each other and create a bulletin board that explains the pronouns. They wear pins that identify themselves as their pronoun. They recognized Transgender Visibility Day this past Thursday. Last week, we had our Spirit Week, which was the first one in 3 years. Every grade got a different theme for a particular day. For example, we had TV Day last Tuesday, so seniors dressed up as Disney characters while sophomores dressed up as something from Food Network. This past Friday, we had our spring pep rally and everyone had a great time. Spring sports were represented and some students played games. Members of the yearbook club have completed the yearbook and Ms. Grillo will submit it next Monday. Yearbooks are planned to be given to the seniors on the first day of graduation rehearsals. This is an important time of year for seniors as they start committing to their schools. Some have already committed, but others are waiting to hear back and see if they got accepted. In the first week of May, seniors will have an opportunity to sign the wall by guidance to say where they're continuing their education. This Friday is the junior formal for juniors, and they're all excited. In closing, thanks for listening to my report and have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Questions or comments from board members?
Yes.
Great job, as always.
Thanks.
So 12th grade came in first place for Spirit Week.
Yes.
Is it true 10th grade came in second place? Is that, do you know?
So every day was different, but seniors got first place for just about everything.
Okay. My son tried to tell me 10th grade was a close second, but I didn't believe it.
Because there were some things where we got tied with the sophomores.
It's funny, Rich. It's funny, Rich. In 40 plus years of Spirit Week, I never remember the seniors losing. I don't know how that happens every year. But it does.
Probably because it depends on the theme you get. So sometimes if we got tied with the sophomores, that probably means that we got two of the best themes.
Yeah. I hope nobody's from Illinois, but I think it's a little bit like Cook County, but that's okay. It's a fun week, though, right?
Yes.
The thing I want to comment on here in Rich's report. Remember, Rich had to miss the last meeting, so we kind of got two reports for the price of one tonight. Yes. It's just really great to hear all the activities that were part of the last quarter of the school year happening again. You know, after, like you said, 2 or 3 years of them not happening. So that's good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your all of your comments. We really appreciate it. And you can feel free to stay if you'd like for the rest of the meeting, but if you have to commit yourself to homework or otherwise, we understand as well.
Okay.
So thank you again.
Thanks, of course.
So we are going to move on now to the report of the superintendent.
Okay, thank you. Short report tonight as we met 2 weeks ago, but I want to follow up on something Rich mentioned about the FBLA, the Future Business Leaders of America. They got those results, and we are very pleased that 2 of our students have qualified for the national championships that are going to be held, speaking of Illinois, in Chicago. So that it was Kira Parikh and Thomas Mashia, I hope I had his name correct. They qualified in their categories to go on to the national competitions that take place at the end of June, I believe. And so congratulations to them, and congratulations to Ms. Leonard and Ms. Bott, who are the advisors of the clubs. That's really good news. You know, you look at the academic decathlon team qualifying for the nationals, these 2 individuals qualifying for the nationals. And again, I never like to sit here, you know, Rich mentioned college acceptances, and they're coming in now. And, you know, and usually is May 1st is the day, that final date to make decisions. But I do want to single out Dana Soraya because I think it really speaks to the entire district, pre-K through 12, to have a student accepted. You know, we've been fortunate in getting Ivy League acceptances for several years, but this student gets accepted to 3 Ivy League schools: UPenn, Columbia, and Princeton. So that's a tribute to her, but also a tribute to the district for having our students ready for these challenges. So congratulations and to all those students I mentioned. The CUSAC visit, that seems to be like a moving target. It was supposed to be in January, then they moved it to February, then they moved it to March. Well, now we're moving to May. So May 4th is going to be the facilities visit. And it was going to be the high school and Pierpont. Pierpont is doing state testing that week, so we'll probably see if we could do Lincoln and maybe the K Center instead of Pierpont. But we're going to be, until they change it again, okay? It's May 4th. New Jersey school performance reports that come out annually are going to be released by the state to the public on or about April 6th. Once they are released, they'll be up on our website. I would, and there'll be a link to this the site that has the district report and each individual school's report. I would advise anyone though that's going to look at it that there's not a lot of really new information. There's some different data in terms of attendance and graduation rate and things like that. But so much of the for better or worse, in terms of whether or not this is the way you should value academic success, is based on the state testing, which hasn't taken place for the last 2 years. So that data is 3 years old now. But there's still some good information in the report. And once it's released, it'll be up on the website. Probably April 6th. Could be a little later based on when the state releases it. The Summer Enrichment Academy that runs for our rising kindergarten to grade 3 students, enrollment opened, I think, 2 days ago. And we already have 102 students enrolled. So that's a great start. I think we've hit the high 200s in the past. So after 1 day, we're already at 102. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting board committee will meet next Monday. We'll be reminding you of that at 6:45 via Zoom. I had already sent you a Zoom invite. I'll send you the link again with the agenda. And Building and Grounds will meet at 7:30. Similarly, I sent you the link, and we'll send you it again when the agenda goes out. And one thing I always said when I was in the building that you don't really have to remind people of, remind everyone, school will be closed for our version of spring break, Friday the 15th of April, and then the following week, the week of the 18th. So schools will be closed. Those days, the district is shut down for 3 of those days, and then there'll be, limited staff working the other 3 days. Okay, so that's it for my report today.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Any questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the report of the president. As we just met a couple weeks ago, I don't have anything substantial to report at this time. I do see that we have been invited to the end of the year party, which says celebrate the faculty, staff, and administration. We're getting this 3 months in advance, so I think it would be great if we could have a critical mass show up. It is a lot of fun. I think this is the first time in 2 or 3 years probably this is happening. So with that, at 7:43 p.m., we are going to open the meeting to the public for any comments related to the agenda this evening. Okay, hearing none, we're going to close the meeting at 7:44 p.m. and we're going to move on to new business where there is action to be taken. And we will start with personnel. Mrs. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we were asked by the superintendent to move the following recommendations. One, here we go. Michelle Centrello, teacher assistant at Kindergarten Center. 2, Francesca Mastropiero, resignation of Francesca, lead replacement guidance counselor at Union Middle School. Miguelina Torres, to approve number 3, to approve her as head custodian. It is a she, right? Miguelina, I guess so. Head custodian at Union Middle School. Number 4, Jane Waller, to approve as a part-time teacher assistant at Rutherford High School. Number 5, Bulldog Care Coordinator before and after, to approve Darlene Monticello as coordinator of the Bulldog program. 6, Bulldog Care Accountant before and after. That'll be approved to approve Joanne Hughes as the accountant for the Bulldog Care program. Number 7, Employee 2482, approve a disability leave on a leave of absence under the Family Leave Act, followed by child rearing leave absence for number 2482. Number 8, job description, to approve attached new job description, assistant data coordinator, administrator assistance for information technology. Travel reimbursements, number 9, to approve the following travel reimbursements for the 2021-22 school year. And that's for to reimburse Erica Aiello, Naomi Haft, Amanda Mitchell, and Caitlin Mastrofilippo. So with the board's approval, I ask for a vote to accept the recommendations of the superintendent.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Ahmed. Questions or comments from board members? Dr. Racine?
In number 8, the background on that it's a title change, not a person.
No, it's it's a title change. It's a whole new job.
Right.
The job will be posted, and you're right. There's a person in that position, but the job will be posted. And as was discussed with personnel, this is driven by the increased amount of data in terms of student management system, NJ Smart, SID management. There's so much data entry that requires a lot more effort than the supervisor can give solely with our other duties. And this will be an assistant to that data entry. Also allows for more redundancy in a lot of the reports that are mandated by the state and federal government.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, Mrs. Ahmed moved those. Do we have a second? All right, Mr. Bogosian, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly. Please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on now to curriculum and instruction. Mrs. Jones.
Thank you. We haven't had a CNI meeting. As you heard Mr. Hurley said, we will have one next week. And tonight was the Washington School PTA meeting, which I could not attend because I'm here, but I did send a report of board activities and so forth to them. Tonight there are 7 resolutions or motions set forth by the superintendent for our consideration. Number 1, out-of-district placements. Number 2, field trips, now totaling 65. Resolutions 3 through 10 are harassment, intimidation, and bully decisions. And resolution 11 is home instruction for 4 students. And that's pretty set forth, pretty clear.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Jones. Questions or comments by board members? Hearing none, Mrs. Jones, do you want to move those?
I move resolutions 1 through 11 under curriculum and instruction.
All right. Can we have a second? Mr. Mazzone, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes to all, but abstain from number 9.
Thank you. Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Alati.
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on now to finance. Dr. Racine.
All right. For finance, we have a whopping 1 item on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I know next one's going to be a lot, right?
Well, there may only be one motion, but we still managed to screw it up because you'll notice there are no numbers in there.
That's what that was a lesson to you.
Um,
Table for what amount? I have
Well,
down
you
here.
have,
I have it here.
this
4
came in your board packet. These are the
Yeah,
numbers
I
that
have
go
it.
in there. So the total for the bills is $4,868,530.89. We'll make sure those are put into the minutes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, item number 1, approval of bills that we just talked about.
All right, questions or comments? Hearing none, Dr. Racine, you moving those? Moving that one.
Yes.
All right, we have a second. Mr. Healy, last comments or questions? Over to you, Mr. Kelly.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to policy now. Mr. Healy.
Yeah, thank you. We did not have a committee meeting since our last board meeting. But tonight, as a second reading, we have one resolution with 13 policies and/or regulations, and we're putting them forth for approval. All are mandatory except one policy. So I'd like to put that one resolution forth for.
All right, thank you, Mr. Healy. And just a reminder, this is a second reading. The board did approve this first time, but it has to be approved twice. Any comments or questions on policy? Hearing none, Mr. Healy's moved those. Do we have a second? All right, Mr. Sprayberry, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly?
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on now to buildings and grounds. Mr. Sprayberry.
Hi, good evening. We have one motion related to the user project graduation for to use the 3 Rutherford Board of Education school buses for round trip transportation. I'll put those forth for approval.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments? Pretty standard.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I was just checking something. Every year we do this project graduation. They're a separate entity, and they raise money to provide an opportunity for our seniors to celebrate, but after they're no longer a student. So we don't run it, they run it. And to help them defray some of the costs they have, we waive a fee that we would charge a private group for a bus.
Okay. Mr. Sprayberry, want to move those?
Move those. I'll add one thing. We did not have the ENG committee, but I did attend Fairpont, and I'm going to call Miss Carrie on Allison. She's always a thunder stealer at the Fairpont PTA meeting. Okay, so every time you go behind her, Mr. Earl, I'm sure you know that she always steals everyone's thunder.
Well, no, because I usually go first, and I make sure I steal everybody's stuff.
So always an excellent report.
Dr. Oladi has to deal with that at the PT council meetings, and at the board meetings.
Sure. I strike out 3/4 of my report after he's spoken. All right, we have a second on buildings and grounds. Mr. Bogosian, any last comments or questions? Hearing none. Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone,
Yes.
Dr. Racine,
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry,
Yes.
Dr. Oladi.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, we're going to move now into old business. Does anyone have any old business they would like to bring up? Mr. Healy.
Yes, I have one item. I attended the Bergen County School Board Association meeting March 29th, and the county superintendent, Lou DeLucio, spoke. And he hit some of the issues which we've discussed regarding school budgets, which are being, as you know, being reviewed. And he talked about Chapter 44 and teacher shortages, substitute teacher shortages. And then there was a roundtable, which they opened it up to the other participants in the meeting. And some of the things that they talked about again was staffing shortages and also transportation issues, which fortunately I believe we do not have that scale of issues with transportation costs especially.
We do have some, and Mr. Kelly could probably speak to that a little bit, with not so much us, but in terms of the jointure, getting bus routes, they go out to bid for some of our students has been a challenge. So statewide, nationwide, there's a problem with bus drivers and buses. Costs are going up tremendously. So it's a double edge, of not having enough resources, both in the budget to get them, but also resources in terms of drivers and buses available. What Mr. Delisio was trying to do is work to expand these consortiums with the different regional special ed. See, it's like the South Bergen Jointure as a regional consortium for special education has to get lots of buses for themselves. So in going out to bid, other districts will have them do their bidding because you get a better opportunity to get buses, get a good price, and so on. The other regions in Bergen County, there's Region 2, there's Region 3, there's Region 4. They work all independently like the jointure. They're trying now to coordinate a little bit, so there could possibly be some shared services. Now, that sounds like a great idea. You have somebody from Mawa, it's going to be hard to share a route with somebody in Lyndhurst, right? But at least it opens up more communication to try to help out where we can.
And one other topic was ESSA funding and what districts are doing, which was all over the map with what's being addressed. But that was it. It was a good meeting, long meeting, and there's about 46 participants. So
Good.
It was pretty well represented throughout the county.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Healy. Other old business? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to legislative update. Ms. Jones, you have anything?
Yep, just a couple of ones. This is from the Senate Education Committee, the EpiPen administration for bus drivers. Senate Bill 133 permits school bus driver to administer an epinephrine, say it for me.
EpiPen.
Thank you. To a student in emergency situations. The NJSBA supports this bill. And another one, smartphone social media impact study. The Senate Bill 715 would establish a commission on the effects of smartphone and social media usage on adolescents to study the extent of smartphone and social media usage in public schools. That might be interesting. And just one more, in case we're interested in this. This is at workshop, which is coming up in October, 24th to 26th, and registration is now open. Okay.
It's going to be in person again, finally?
Excuse me?
It's going to be in person again?
Yes,
Good.
this year it is. But they're seeking students to perform at the workshop in singing or instrumental talents and so forth. And I'm just offering that if you want to look into it, if you want to do it. We have such talent in our music. I go to the musicals and the plays and whatever else is in. Maybe the high school would like to.
That's in the latest.
I'm sorry?
That's in the latest bulletin they put out?
Yes.
Okay. I'll look into that.
Thank you.
And just a point of clarity, I didn't read the proposed legislation for the EpiPen, but my assumption would be, to administer an EpiPen now, every school's got a certain number of people. They have to be trained.
Right.
So the bus driver would have to be trained. I don't want anybody who hears this to think, we'll just give EpiPens to the bus drivers and they can go and they'd have to be trained. I think in terms of especially districts like Mr. Healy remarked, some districts where busing is a major, major component of the school day, everybody's getting bused. I think it makes a lot of sense, to have it covered when the students are in the building and not have it covered when they're on a bus, especially in some places in the state where they're on a bus for a significant amount of time. That makes sense, but they would have to be trained. I'm sorry.
So on legislation, do you have any insight into the 8:30 p.m. or a.m. high school bill?
I know the Record ran an article this weekend, and I saw a couple of parents on Park Avenue today, one lobbying strongly against me, it starts, right, telling me, please don't do this, and other saying, please do it. And, right. And, well, that, I'm used to that. But it hasn't happened yet, right? It's being discussed. I'll wait. I'll be like the people in the article, though, the reserved comment. I've commented on this before, though. I think, Ridgewood did these meetings for a couple of years. You're really looking at a real cultural change to how schools operated for over 100 years, and that's a big change to put on people. And so you look at things on, in terms of, like I was talking about transportation. Yeah, the kids will be going later, but they may be hitting more rush hour traffic. It also means they're coming home later, which means they're going to hit more rush hour traffic. Parents who rely on students, older students, to pick up the younger students from school, which happens a lot in our district, that's going to change. Part-time jobs for kids may change. The interscholastic athletic program is going to be dramatically impacted, in the fall and the spring when fields don't have lights and things of that nature. I remember when we were on split sessions, I don't want to say what year it was, but it was Jimmy Carter was in the White House. And we used to have to I was coaching freshman soccer, and when we had games, we used to have to get dismissed at 2:30 or 3 o'clock every day, and school went on till like 5:15. So, if there's a lot of things, and I've said this before, legislators don't think about. And Ridgewood commissioned a study and thought they were going to go forward with it, and then the people in the town said, whoa, wait, we don't like all this. So, we'll have to see how it plays out. I could speak for myself and say that if I know my day is starting a little later the next day, I may stay up a little later. So I'm not really sure that kids will be going to bed the same time. When they know they don't have to get up at 7, they can get up at 8. That's just me, as an old grouchy person. I think there's some merit. You can't dispute the studies. There's enough of them to have merit. But, the hearing how we're going to deal with all those other things, is, I think, interesting to see how we're going to deal with all those things. But often we get legislation and we're told, well, now figure it out. So we'll see where it goes. The record story, I don't know if that means this is gaining more strength or not, or whether they just had a slow news day, but it certainly did generate a lot of discussion around today.
Other comments about the legislative updates? Okay, hearing none, then at 8:02 p.m., we're going to open the meeting to the public for items related or not related to the agenda.
Good evening, Kathleen Campbell of Rutherford. In September, I came and I was asking for a parent roundtable to discuss the curriculum changes that the state did in terms of comprehensive health and physical education. Mr. Hurley, when I met with you and Principal Joan Caron in October, you were taking it under consideration and were, I think, looking to do it in March. That's come and gone now, so I'm just here looking to see if there's an update on that. And additionally, I would like to add a diversity, equity, and inclusion curriculum parent roundtable to that. I have OBRED all of the resources utilized by our teaching staff and instructional resources as well, thanks to the help of Mr. Kelly. And I have a myriad of questions and concerns, which I won't be able to cover those in the short time that I could speak here today. So I'm asking for an update on the original roundtable and to see if we can add in a DEI one as well. Thank you.
Okay. I can give you a quick update. At the last meeting, I proposed and it was approved a change in how I'm going to run meetings, because often these meetings happen in the evening and you get 8 people there. I'm going to do a series of, for lack of a better word, coffee hours at each of the buildings, beginning April 20. I don't want to say the date. One's the last week of April, and then the other 5 are going to be in the first week or 2 of May. And after the break, I was going to put it out there. And it's going to be it's not going to be about the topics that you said, but it's going to be an open forum for any topic people want to come with. And I'll try my best to answer there. And if there's something that comes forward that I can't answer, I'll get the information and get back to the person. Okay. So that's, I thought, was a better way to connect with topics that people might be interested in. and also maybe a time more convenient. I know for some people it's not convenient. They have to get off to work, but for some people the evening's not convenient. So we'll give this a shot. So so that's where we're going this year. One of the things that we're also looking into are a more aggressive agenda for next year, as things have now back to where we don't have to say, are we planning something, or maybe we shouldn't be planning something. You know, one of the things that came up in December and January was Omicron, where all of a sudden we started putting some things on hold about how we're going to do things. So that's how we're seeing things till the end of the school year. So feel free to attend. You know, in theory, I'd like people to attend the one in their child's school, because we could then gear conversation to that grade level or that building. But clearly, I also think there could be topics or questions that would be a district-wide concern.
Right.
Okay?
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Bonnie Corcoran, 390 Montrose Avenue. Been a while. You know, I've been out of the school for 3 years, 2 years. I don't know. Lost count. So I come here because something was brought to my attention, and when someone tries to close a door, it opens more doors. So I thought the Board of Ed and PTA were always non-political. You always kept the politics out of it. At least that's how it was when I was involved in the schools with PTA. And I was involved for many years because I had both kids. But when I look at the current PTA boards, they are filled with small, cliquey groups of friends, and it's the same people's names, just different roles when you look from school to school. And the majority of them have connections, maybe to the Board of Ed, maybe to the schools, or maybe to borough officials. The reason I question this, because about 2 weeks ago, I drove Chris back up to Boston. I came home. I was really tired. I usually stay up till like 11 o'clock midnight, but I fell asleep early. I was woken up at 9:30 at night because I went and made a comment on a friend's private Facebook post. That comment was screenshot and shared around a bunch of people, and someone called me at 9:30, 9:45 at night, woke me up, told me I should butt out because I don't know what I'm talking about. The comment I made was really just my opinion of, you know, this is my comment, word for word. It's pretty sad and pathetic that grown people continue to play the high school games, especially when it involves kids. Yours, ours, theirs. The sad thing they're only doing is teaching their kids how to be discriminating towards other people and not letting more people join in the group. I was again, you know, told, you don't know what you're talking about, butt out. Okay. I actually put the phone on speaker because had I been awake, I would have recorded it. But I was literally asleep and hit my answering button thinking it was Chris and Katie, because no one calls me after 9 o'clock. So I decided to look into the PTAs because, you know, they want me to butt out. Per the IRS 990 forms for the year of 2019 and 2020, the then PTA Board of Pierpont went and transferred $4,000 of Pierpont PTA money to Union School PTA for the sole use of a certain class of kids for when they graduate Union School. I served on a lot of PTAs. We've never done that, where you transfer money from one PTA to another PTA to use for a group. I know we had Corona and everything. A lot of people lost lives, jobs, companies. It's called life. Also, when I went through the tax forms, the board also reported a school improvement fee of $2,800. I get the PTA usually donates a rug here or books, but $2,800? That's more like a taxpayer figure that would give the school improvements, because I think the school improvements come from the budgets and the taxpayers. So I'm wondering if the school was either double dipping that year or something anomaly happened that, they got $2,800 for school improvements, because I went through all the other PTA files that are online, and no other PTA gave school improvement money. So it brings questions. By the way, the person that called me was a former member of the PTA and is a current member of the PTA. The treasurer, member of the board of ed. So maybe everybody can shed light on why this happened. Because when I was in PTA, we didn't share money with other schools. We raised the money for our school, and we spent it on our school kids. Raised money, maybe donated some plants or decorations for the school. We certainly didn't write a check out for a few $1,000s. I do know that the PTA, you don't have to have a kid to be in it. So maybe now that I'm retired, maybe I'll just join a few. I think it's what, $10 to join in? I've been out for a while. $10? No one's answering. Yes,
Yes,
no?
it's $10 dues.
Thank you, Diana. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments from the public? All right, hearing none at 8:11 p.m., we're going to close the meeting. I have a comment or two to make, but Mr. Hurley, if you want to
No,
make a comment. I just wanted to say in terms of the role of the Board of Education, so the Parent-Teacher Association, which we have a tremendous amount of respect for and appreciation of, is a completely separate entity from the Board of Education. So the Board of Education, of course, wants the PTA to be successful, but we really don't have interactions. We don't respond to things that happen within the PTA. Typically, if there is a concern that someone in the PTA has, they should bring it to the PTA president. If that concern's not satisfied, they should go to the PT council president. And if that concern's not satisfied, they should go to the Bergen County PTA. So that would be the chain of command. And if by the Bergen PTA, you're not satisfied with that, then I would suppose coming to Mr. Hurley and speaking to him as superintendent would be a final step. But just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, if I could add, the building principal certainly has conversation with and guidance for PTA. I'm speaking now generally, going back to when I was principal. You want to know what fundraisers are going on. You sometimes guide them, but you don't manage necessarily the money. You would certainly advise them if there's something they should or shouldn't do. I'm not, I can't speak to any of the things that were said tonight in terms of anything I have no knowledge I could find out, but I'm not going to speak to that. But that's in general how it works. And Dr. Eladi's right. It's not run by the school the same way the music boosters aren't and the athletic boosters aren't, and the like. I will say that going back back to Jimmy Carter's days and further, there were always PTA members. Ms. Clark's right. You don't have to have a student. There are some PTA members who were on the high school PTA for 20 years. And sometimes I think one of the things that I've always felt with organizations, whether they be the music boosters or the athletic boosters or any of those organizations, REF, any of these groups, there are people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and work, and sometimes they're the ones who stay around and get involved. Always like to get some new blood, but a lot of times that new blood isn't forthcoming. So I think there's a lot of layers in what we just heard, but yet we don't control it, but we certainly have a voice in it. I'm not washing the district's hands of having involvement with any of these groups because we're working together with them. And one last thing I want to say, if you are a board member or a teacher or a secretary or a custodian, and you live in this town, obviously the board members have to live in this town, but sometimes it's challenging to have children in school and have a role as a teacher or a secretary or whatever, or a board member. but you don't give up your rights as a parent. You still can function in that role, and I think there always has to be that line drawn that if a board member is coming to speak about a student's grade, and that student's his student, he's speaking to the guidance counselor as a parent, not as a board member. And if a teacher or a custodian is volunteering for the Boosters Club or the PTA, that's their right. You don't lose your right as a parent. And I understand how human nature is. It's possible sometimes a person can cross the line. I'm not saying anybody has or does, but it can. But that's when we have to remind them of that. But I don't think we can tell folks that, because they're living in town, their kids are in school, they're paying taxes, they have a right to participate in these activities too.
All right, so we have concluded that portion. We do have a need for an executive session to discuss 3 student matters.
5 minutes.
We should be out for about 5 minutes or so, give or take. So I need a motion for us to go into executive session. Mr. Sprayberry, seconded by Mr. Mazzone. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are going into executive session.